Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at Wizard today Gregory Sherman Jr. of XCons for Community Social Change. How are you today, Gregory?
I'm great. I cannot complain. Happy Monday. I like to say it's motivational Monday, so I'm
Oh,
great.
let's see.
Can you hear me okay? Is my volume all right?
Yes, it's perfect. Very, very good. Okay.
Well, thank you for inviting me this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's
No doubt about it.
because our show today is it's about community and social change. So it all fits perfectly. It's very important.
Yes, very much so.
First of all, what is the ECCSC XCons for Community and Social Change and its mission?
Well, as you just said, it is ECCSC. It stands for Ex-Cons for Community and Social Change. And our mission is to get in front of the community as people who did wrong before. It takes us to save us. So,
Mhm.
in being incarcerated, you get a chance to sit down and reevaluate and understand where you went wrong, the mistakes you made, and you get to see the mistakes that the children are making currently. And so we like to say, who better to fix the problem than us, the ones who been through it before. So,
Mhm.
uh, yeah.
Just a question. While you're incarcerated, how available is news to inmates?
So, I mean, you get the news, right? You can get the newspaper sent to you. They'll be a
Mhm.
week or so old. And we get most of depending on what penitentiary you're in, you get most of the local news stations. So
Mhm.
you get CNN, you get WGN, you get those places to keep up with the news. So
Do
it's
you have
pretty.
do you watch the news in a common area or in the cell?
Oh, it depends again on both.
Okay.
Some places have a common area where all the inmates group together and they control the channels. And
Hmm.
then other institutions, you have a cell where you have your TV in your cell with your cellmate. It just depends on your level of I guess priority, high level, risk or low level risk. If you're in the minimum or maximum
Hmm.
institution.
Okay. Yes, because it is very important. Just because your level of engagement in improving the community has to derive from your staying in touch with what's happening in the community. So, uh, how engaged are inmates with what is happening in the community, such as keeping up with the news, etc.
Well, I mean, it depends. Just like in this world today, you have people who care more about certain things than others, right? And so,
Hmm.
those like myself and my colleagues at ECCSC,
Hmm.
and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention communities partnering for peace as well. I'm a victims advocate, also with communities partnering with peace, and so to answer your question, I think that it just depends on the individual. Some are highly engaged, right?
Hmm.
Those who care and those who want to invoke change or just be educated on what's going on. We are highly engaged in the community and the news, right? But then those who just don't care, they don't, they rather watch something else or they rather play cards or do something else with their time than pay attention to the news.
Hmm. Okay. What was your defining moment when you decided you're going to change something, help the kids so that they don't end up as inmates? And what was your defining moment, your epiphany?
Well, I'll say my epiphany came in stages, right? Each time um, I was arrested, or each time that I faced those circumstances, a little bit more of me changed, right? We are who we are internally, and so I think that this activist, this budding person who I am today, sitting with you now, was always around, right? I remember in school, my teachers telling me, "You're great if you just use your voice for positivity instead of negativity." So my epiphany came in stages. However, my last time being incarcerated, it just changed. I was grown. I had children who were teenagers who it affected differently. They could voice their opinions differently, and they voiced their displeasure to their father running in and out of their life, or, you know, being in trouble. And so I think it was more of my babies being teenagers and able to voice their displeasure and concerns that actually clicked the thing that made the change complete. So
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. So how did you come to serve as, okay, first of all, how did you first get involved with ex-cons for community and social change?
again, through CP4P and my work there. I'm sure you guys know Ralph Edwards. He's been on he's the executive director. He's been on the show before. Um, he's a friend and boss. But it was just, we are ex-cons, right? And we're all fighting for community and social change. So Tyrone Muhammad, who is the executive director and founder of ECCSC, we were communicating via inboxes and text messages. And then we met, and there was just so much synergy and energy in our missions and what our lives, right, what our destinies have called us to do. And so it was easy to link with that brother and all brothers that are fighting this fight, right, of social change and equity, equality, right? We're all in the same fight for the same reason. And so I reached out to that brother and just said, hey, I wanted to support and lend my body, my voice, and my soul to this mission and to this outcome, because it's not cliche that we realize it's going to take us to save us. We can't not wait on this country. We cannot wait on this city. So yeah, that's how I came about. I reached out to Tyrone Muhammad via inbox. He invited me to a rally, and the rest, they say, is history in the making.
How do your babies, how do your children think about your work? What do they think? And what about your family?
It was rocky at first, especially when they see me get arrested or any kind of interaction with the police that are not, just calm. They get nervous. They don't want to see their father back incarcerated. Mm-hmm. But with education comes understanding. And so I would say that now, currently, they're very proud of their father. They speak the same language because through educating them and showing them what I am fighting for and why we are fighting, we'll get to it later, but simple stuff like the marijuana, to be sitting in front of you as somebody who is locked out of that industry, right? Somebody who was locked up for weed and missed my youngest daughter being born because of a marijuana charge, right? When I explained it to them that way, that we have to fight or nothing will change. We have to, when you're called, similar to when Fred Hampton did it, Malcolm X did it, Martin Luther King did it, right? When you're called, the family doesn't understand until you're in the fight. And so currently they are in the fight with me and they are proud of me. And so, yeah, it's fun having my babies at the rallies with me, listening to them do interviews and talk about what it is their father is doing and why he is doing it. So yeah, I think they both have a little activism in their hearts as well. So
then how did you become to serve as a director of ex-cons for community and social change?
So my complete title is director of community engagement, right? And so community outreach and engagement, I'm sorry. As you can tell, I like to run my mouth. I like to talk to people. And so Tyrone Muhammad, who's the executive director again and founder, he appointed me that position because it fits me well. And I have no issues talking about our plight. I have no, I consider myself a motivational speaker, a social influencer. And so director of community engagement and outreach seemed to just fit me perfectly. So that's how it came about. It was appointed to me by the founder, Tyrone Muhammad.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. But so did it come to you naturally? Did you have any training?
Well, we I'm training daily, but we like to say at over here at ECCSC that we have years of training, right? All the years that I was incarcerated, every day was training. When you're incarcerated, they put you through so much mental health and drug counseling, right? And so some of the things that others say you need training for, we say we're built in training for it, right? I identify with those that I'm trying to reach more than most because I am them, they are me, right? You cannot separate us as a people. Some are just in different stages of life. And so, yeah, that's the training. And we still conduct trainings annually every 90 days or so, just to stay sharp and to learn new skills to be able to engage the community in which we're trying to save. So it's both ingenuity um, and training to tackle this issue that seems nonstop, right?
Mhm. Yes. What resources, well, okay, first of all, how difficult is it for ex-offenders to find employment?
Well, I would say that it's not difficult to find employment, right? It's difficult to find employment that helps your situation, right? Because most grown men, if they get out here and they get a minimum wage paying job or some job in a factory, right, it's just enough to where they're not starving, but it's not enough to do anything, right? I mean, I can tell you from example of having multiple jobs, that is just not enough, especially when you have teenage daughters or teenage kids looking for you to be the savior. They need things, right? And so employment is not the issue. Uh, Viable employment is the issue, right? Finding jobs that can really make a living and put you in a situation where you don't have to do anything illegal to survive, right? And so, and then training is another thing. It's being an employee. Previously to joining ECCSC, I was director of operations for a few major corporations, right? I've employed probably over 100 people in my life, and I can tell you that our communities need training. They need just personal skills training, interview training, how to conduct an interview, how to dress up for an interview, right? And so if no one's teaching our children these things, right, then how do they expect them to perform them? And so yeah, I hope I answered your question there.
Oh, it's very good. So does ECCSC provide these resources to the community so that it not only helps the offenders, the ex-offenders, but also the community members as well?
Yes, I
This,
mean, to name just a few of our programs, we have mental health and drug counseling, violence de-escalation and conflict resolution, diversity and inclusive training, mentorship, GED reentry programs, restorative justice programs, criminal justice reform, behavioral modification, and mentorship, right? It's just to name a few. Those are the programs that we offer, and we're looking to partner and grow. As we grow, so shall our resources, right? The more resources that we acquire, the more we'll be able to offer the community which we serve.
how does X stands for community and social change help the ex-offenders find viable employment?
Well, first by going out and engaging in the community, right? We like to develop relationship with the local business owners, primarily because if you look at certain businesses, right, um, that are non-black owned, right, no matter what the owners may be, and then you ask yourself, how long have they been in your community, right? And so you take a we deal in Rogers Park, so I'll just say Willie White Park, right? There's a big liquor store across the street called Around the Clock. Everybody knows Around the Clock's been there since we were kids, right? They sell all that stale eggs and bread and liquor primarily, right? However, what do they do for the neighborhood? Look at the park across the street from that, right? And so we like to go into the community, the businesses first, and establish relationships and understanding that you will not no longer stay here if you're not willing to help the community in which you're getting rich off of. So no longer will we accept these people coming into our communities and just benefiting off our plight, right? They want to sell us all the liquor and all the drugs and all of the bad stuff, all the bad foods, right? However, they don't want to help with none of the plight. And then they want to get frontline and scream, stop the violence. But what are you doing to stop the violence in your current position as owners of buildings and businesses in this community? And so then while we're training our children and our peers as well, because let's just be honest, it's not all children. We need, some of the guys my age and younger need help as well. So once we engage with them and get them through our program and in personal one-on-one training, understanding what they need, right? What education they need, get them ready. Then we look to have a pipeline straight to employment, right? Um, and we, ECCSC, social change, we're also screaming that the government and everybody who's voting really acknowledge the plight of Black America and acknowledge the intentional planning of this country to harm our communities, right? If you hear the president speak of it during his press conferences, but we don't acknowledge what he's talking about when he says this country needs to right its wrongs or admit its mistakes. He's talking about the civil rights. He's talking about slavery. He's talking about mass incarceration. He's talking about Reaganomics, right? Understanding that drugs were intentionally put in our communities to destroy them, intentionally done by the president of the United States. And so when you know those histories, then you must get in front of it as we are and say enough is enough. When will we as a people say, all right, this country has not yielded enough resources for us to succeed? It just hasn't. And that's just a fact. No matter no matter what you say, yeah, there's plenty of people who made it out. There's plenty of people who've done better, right? But what about the 40% who got, right? Okay, so PETA, I like to use PETA for an example, right? PETA is an entity who protects all animals, right? All animals' rights. But then there's this group, this special group who get a little bit more protection and a little bit more acknowledgement. They're the endangered species, right? So I'm saying that America needs to start looking at Black people as an endangered species. We can no longer die at this rate and get incarcerated at this rate and uneducated at this rate and think that our legacy will continue. How about that? We just cannot. And we're dying as a collective at an all-time high in every city, not just Chicago. And at what point do we say that is a pandemic? At what point do we realize that Black Americans have had a pandemic since we got here? And so, yeah, sorry, I went off straight. To answer your question is we go to the businesses, demand that they offer resources, demand that they get back. And through the training of our participants, we engage and get them ready for whatever line of employment that they're seeking.
Well, I have two follow-up questions since you gave such a good answer. First of all, how did businesses such as Around the Clock respond to your request? And then was there any response from that signified that there is improvement now versus what it was?
No, not yet. But we're giving them a little time before we shut them down, because it's just a matter of time before we go in there and boycott them and shut them down, right? But the communities, right, especially here on the north side, have been taught to not be concerned with Black Americans, right? Even so much so that there was no neighborhood opportunity fund money or TIF money released up here for Black Americans, right? We wonder why. Like, I'm sitting here as an entrepreneur and wondering why there wasn't neighborhood opportunity funding made available for the north side, right? And so Around the Clock responded as they always do. They kind of blow us off, right? Kind of threaten to call the police when we come in there. But, we will not be stopped. We will not be deterred. So we'll be back. We'll be back, and they will hear from us shortly coming up this summer as we are dealing with that park and that neighborhood as every day. We have a Correct the Courts initiative, a barbecue block party. I'd like to invite you and everybody listening, come out July 3rd to our Willie White barbecue. We tackled the issue with Willie White. They didn't have any basketball courts up at Gale or Willie White, right? And we're like, that was a direct deterrent from the neighborhood in which you're supposed to serve, right? And so we demanded that they put them back. They've agreed. And so we're celebrating with a barbecue and a tournament July 3rd, starting at 1 p.m.
Well, so far, Around the Clock hasn't seen any progress in addressing them. Has ECCSC dealt with other businesses, and were there any examples of change that did come out of going to a business and asking them to be more responsive to the community?
Yep. We have some partners. I mean, specifically on the north side, Sci-Fi's Pizza was a big help. Barbiani's Mediterranean food is a help of ours, right? They are willing to lend not just money, but their resources as well. Um, who else on this north side? Mm, Nobody I could think of at the moment. It's still a work in progress. We've knocked on a few
Yes.
doors, and a lot of people are saying they're coming, and we'll see. Oh, Legacy Barbers College. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that brother. He sits on Howard as well.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's it for now. Hopefully, after the third, with all these sponsorships and partnerships that are budding, I'll have more to report next time.
Yes. For okay, the second part of the question is for since now it is on the national radar with President Biden actually acknowledging that there is this equity and that we need to address it. So it's reached the top. But have you seen any change on the ground?
Not yet, not enough. I'll say we saw a minimal change, right? Like I think that a lot of people don't really understand the plight and what's necessary, right? And so changing LSD to Disable Drive does nothing for the boots on the ground. It does nothing for the communities in which we're fighting for, right? And so they do all these one-off things, or they give the money to these organizations who have been around for hundreds of years already. We keep saying, if you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, then what? I mean, we all know that's insanity, right? And so, yeah, the minimal change is the answer to your question. That's why we're here. That is why we go so hard. That is why we are loud in our voices, because we're saying enough is enough. You have $5 million, I think it took, to name LSD, right? When our neighborhoods are starving. Like, these babies aren't killing each other. They're not selling drugs because it's fun. They're not doing it because it's a hobby. They're doing it because when they go home, they don't have any food on the table. They're doing it because on one side, we allow the media to brainwash our children with these reality shows and the music, right? Of expecting greatness. They see greatness. They want the thing, the cars, the jewelry, the money that we put in front of them and dangle it, right? But we don't give them ways to obtain it. And so they only go about the ways that they were taught to obtain it, taught by this government to obtain it, right? And that's selling drugs and hurting one another. And so
Mhm.
we have to get in front of it and say enough is enough and demand more, which we are doing now. It's so minimal, but there's so much money that's just being thrown around for stuff that really doesn't matter that much to the neighborhood that we're serving, right? The high risk neighborhoods that have been destitute and disenfranchised and disinvested in for years. What do you expect if you've done that intentionally? And so we're demanding that they put more resources into these communities ASAP, right now, like not tomorrow, not yesterday, but today, right now.
Mhm. It seems as if what you're describing is that even reparations is far from enough. It's community support as other communities are supported that would really make the change.
What is reparations, right? We celebrated Evanston being the first city to offer reparations. But then you go into it, you have to realize that you must show that your family was affected by housing in 1940 or 19. It's just, it's a step in the right direction, but it needs to have a lot more amendments to it, right? Reparations should be um, something that they look at as, I think the Native Americans, right? They get a check every month or whatever if you can prove that you're in a tribe or whatever. I don't know the particulars. I have a couple friends who are of Native American descent, and I know that they and their parents got checks just because they were of Native Americans, right? And so I don't know about reparations, and I don't know how they would go out to divvy that to each person, right? But I know when you talk about the effect of trauma, that my grandmother just passed away, right? 81 years old last week.
I'm sorry to hear that.
1940, it's all right, it's all right. She lived a great life. 1940 was her birth year, right? So think about the amount of trauma and pain that she suffered from this country, right? And so now they ask us to trust the same country that did my grandmother that way. It's not that long ago that they were beating my grandmother in the head with sticks and sticking dogs on her, right? And it's not that long ago that they designed a mass incarceration to lock up her grandchildren and keep us separated. And so when you look at the trauma this country has caused Black people abroad, then, I mean, reparations might not be enough. How do you restore hundred years of what you've tore down, right? And so let's just acknowledge it and not try to fix the past. As the president did say, we can't really fix the past, right? But we can change the future. And changing the future is making sure that the school in Naperville looks like the school on Howard Street. Making sure that the schools in these high, predominant, affluent neighborhoods, right, are the same. They said that the toll roads and all these tickets and all of that stuff, that even the Illinois lottery was supposed to go to education. Then why do we have it that some schools are worse than other schools? They should be equal, right? And so that is the things that we are demanding change about, that we all take a collective look at this country and how it moves and what it does, and realize that it is intentional when it comes to Black and brown people, and that it is unfair and will not be tolerated any longer, at least not by us. We somebody has to stand for it, and so we are. I have a quick story. My parents moved to Des Plaines, Illinois before, right? And my daughter went to Boone, which most of my kids went to Boone Elementary and Mather High School, right? So my daughter was in 6th grade at this time, and we were transferring her, get a better education. Now, at this time, she was a honor roll student, all A's and B's, right? And then I transferred her to Des Plaines. And they actually accused me of altering her grades because she could not pass anything in Des Plaines. She was so far behind in the curriculum that they were teaching in Des Plaines that I had to take her out because they were saying they were going to fail her. And my baby was already 5'10", 7th grade, right? 5'9", 7th grade, so bigger than but again, a honor roll student at Boone. So how do you take an honor roll student at Boone and then take her to a suburban school where she can't pass nothing in the same grade? That happened. And so that lets you know right then and there that the curriculum, the funding, the whole institution of school in Chicago is different than it is in Naperville. And that's just unfair.
For let's say in businesses, when businesses want to open in the neighborhood, is ECCSC able to have a say in their opening? Do you ask questions, and do businesses give promises, and are you able to hold the businesses to any promises they make?
Well, we're learning. We're learning about the political side of things, right? About how you have to be in these Zoom meetings and be at these little, I mean, Public Advisory Council is one to speak of, right? We found out that there were 7 people making decisions for the entire neighborhood park. 7 people who are out of touch and outdated with what's going on in the neighborhood, right? And so as we learn where we must go, where we put our votes at, right? We understand that it's different than what we're accustomed to. However, we're not really willing to wait out those deterrents, wait out those systematic deterrents that is put in place to design to keep Black people from being owners, right? We're running through those doors, Trudy. We have to run through those doors. Those same doors are the ones that they put in place to keep us locked out. Second part of your question is, yes, once we get a verbal commitment from businesses, if they knew better, they would do better. If they knew that they should not give us broken promises, because when we come back, it won't be the same as when we showed up the first time. And so we come and we ask and we give you the plight, right? As I've described so far. If I tell you these things and then you say you care for the neighborhood and yet you play games, then it's time for you to leave the neighborhood. And so, as I said, with this summer, we're expecting that things will look different, and once they look different, they'll start to feel different, right? As we get more ex-cons and more men and women, right, of color on this train that we have going, then I think that as a whole, we collectively will see change.
Could you give us any idea about what promises that the business makes to you?
Well, I mean, it depends on the business. Some businesses promise food, right? Come through and on this day you can get 10 pesos to serve your people, right? Some people um, offer volunteers, right? They don't have money or whatever, but they will, they will volunteer and give us boots on the ground services with them. So it just depends on the entity, what they have, what we ask for, and what they're able to actually give. But we are shining a light more on the government and the city than the people, right? The people we're asking to acknowledge and join the fight with us, right? But Peter, you can't rob Peter to pay Paul. It never turns out, right? Because then Paul got to rob somebody to pay Peter again, right? And so we're screaming that just drop the bag on us, drop the money on the neighborhood and watch it change. Stop with the disenfranchising and the word is escaping me, when the regentrification. Regentrification is real, people. And just look at your neighborhood. Look at this north side, right? I am a lifelong north sider, right? Between Uptown and Rogers Park, I have went to every school and convened and lived in every neighborhood, right? One of the proudest things that I ever had to say about the north side was it was the most diverse community in Chicago. Well, that's no longer true because of regentrification. Uptown now looks like uh, a neighborhood in which Black people weren't there, and we've been there since the beginning, right? But they push us out and then scream diversity. It's like it just doesn't make sense to me. Rogers Park is probably the most diverse, but in certain pockets there is no diversity, right? And so, you know, in being honest with ourselves, we have to just look at the mirror and say, all right, enough is enough. What side are you on? You're going to be on the right side of history or on the wrong side of history? And so those are the promises that these businesses give just to support us, to scream loudly and whatever they have available to give us, because we need so much that we accept it all, from groceries to money, right? But we know for sure if you put some equity in our babies and in our communities, that it will not be the same as it is now. We know that for facts. And so that is what we're demanding.
This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at Wizard Gregory Sherman Jr. of Ex-Cons for Social and Community and Social Change. Gregory, what you described is that there needs to be so much change, and that it has to start with equity and systemic change, as the problems have been systemic. Who among public office holders are your allies? Do you have any? And if you do, how do they work with you?
Well, we have plenty of allies. Anybody who is of right-minded, sound-mindedness, and Black or brown should be an ally, and most of them are. Just to name quite a few of the highest ranking members, Kim Fox is an ally. She understands that it takes boots on the ground to change, and she also understands that it's intentional that more Black people are locked up than anybody in the world, right? I did a survey with just asking most officers, and y'all could do this. Isn't it crazy that every officer on all of their caseloads have more interaction with Black people than any other people? Every officer, no matter what community they serve, but we're only 13% of the country, right? So Kim Fox understands that it takes organizations like Ex-Cons for Community and Social Change to really invoke change. Senator Mike Simmons is another ally. State Rep LaShawn Ford is another ally as we fight the dispensaries and the legalization of marijuana. Everyone knows that they built 32 prisons off drug charges, right? Remember in the 80s and the 90s, people, some of y'all who are my age, I don't want to tell my age, but some of y'all remember when They told us that crack cocaine was a pandemic. Remember, there was an epidemic, that crack was more, it was the most deadly, most addictive drug in history. It was more deadly and addictive than powder cocaine, when all you did was add water and baking soda, right? We understand that this country will lie to the people to make them believe that they have a problem on their hands, just to do away with Black Americans, right? And so that was a trick that they did in public. They made crack cocaine a pandemic, and they built, I think in just Chicago alone, we have 32 prisons, right, that are filled with people of color from the war on drugs. We don't have one free community center anywhere. And so when you take those facts, those are hard facts, right, then all of the politicians, if they were smart, should be lining up with us, because the future is changing, people. No longer will we have to sit back and allow, because the world is watching, social media change and allowed the world to see how Black Americans have been getting treated, specifically in this city, right? And so I think that as white people start fighting for us, as Asian people start fighting for us, as the gay people start fighting for us, right? And everybody acknowledging that there is a problem with Black America sincerely from the top, then we expect that all of the political elected officials will rock with us, right? Here on the North Side, I know we have the support of Maria Haddon. We have the support of Andre Vasquez, who are the aldermen of Matt Martin, right? And so the proof is in the pudding. We have a 2-year peace treaty currently in Uptown, right, that no one wants to talk about. But, again, shout out to Ralph Edwards and CP4P on that one. But we have a 2-year peace treaty that no one wants to talk about in Uptown, right? And if you're familiar with the North Side, we know that Uptown used to be Beirut in a sense, right? Shootings every day, people dying every day. And to have 2 years of silence from people's slides that called a peace agreement, right? We think that everybody should be talking about it. And it's furthermore proof that we work. And so I'm not screaming defund the police, even though that should be up for the discussion. I'm screaming reallocate the funds. They should not get 40% of the entire budget. When, another fact, since the Fraternal Order of Police started in 1980, right, our murder rate has not went under, I want to say 450, 425, right? Yet there's over 12,000 police in the city, and they continuously get billions of dollars, but they have a clearance rate of 11%. And so when you look at the facts that we keep giving them 40% of the entire budget, but nothing's changing in Black neighborhoods. These neighborhoods that have been messed up for 30 years, right? So you take a rookie officer who is now a lieutenant, who is now a superintendent, right? He's been on the force 35 years, but nothing's changed. And so when we take all of those facts into account, we expect that moving forward, all of the elected officials will get on board. It's necessary. It's just time, people. It is time for us to get out of this pandemic of poverty. Black Americans have been in poverty for way, way too long. And we've been under attack by the police for way, way too long, right? It's systematic. As you said, there's a reason that every city around this country has more Black and brown people locked up. It's not because we're doing more wrong. I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up in Wheeling and Buffalo Grove High School, right? And I can tell you that my white and Asian counterparts were doing just as much as I was, but the police weren't focused on them. They weren't pulling them over for marijuana. They were pulling me over for marijuana. And so therefore, I ended up locked up and they didn't. You get what I'm saying? It's just, I can go on and on, but these are facts that I'm stating. And so I just challenge you guys to look up the facts and then side with the right side of history, please.
For our listeners, could you describe a little bit more about what Ralph Edwards' work was, CP43 and the 2-year peace treaty?
Oh yeah, CP4P, Communities Partnering for Peace. One North Side. You guys are familiar with One North Side and Communities Partnering with Peace. Well, Ralph Edwards is the executive director, and he's also the person who hired me for communities partnering for peace. As I said, I'm a victims advocate. So in case somebody gets hurt, I go into and bring them the resources that the city has rolled out. So in engaging in the peace agreement was getting the leaders from these respective neighborhoods and coming together and spelling out the facts that I just rolled out to you, the listeners, that we are not the opposition. We are not the enemy, that we have to fight collectively, the government and the city officials, to demand more. Uplift. Okay, so let's just say Uplift, right? You guys familiar with Uplift High School?
Mhm.
I went there when it was a Rye middle school, and then they changed it to a high school, and now they have a nerve to say that they're suffering from enrollment, and they want to even regentrify it by removing the school. But if you go right around the corner, I think it was Stewart, right? They're now lofts. They changed the pipeline that was right there behind Uptown, the elementary school that was right there on Wilson. They changed it to high-end lofts, right? And now they wonder why Uplift is suffering from enrollment. It's because you took the black elementary school where 90% of those kids went to the high school 1 block away, and you changed it to lofts, right? And so now all those kids had to get bused, and most of the parents moved out the neighborhood because there's no elementary school there. So how do you expect the high school to survive? It's systematic. We know, we see the tricks, we see it, but enough black people and brown people aren't educated enough and courageous enough to stand in front of it, right? They silenced us a lot of ways with the civil rights movement, right? Let me give you guys, I found this out last week, and it really pissed me off because it just shows you more systematic. Did you guys know that Martin Luther King's mother was killed in church? Somebody walked into the church and blew her brains out, right? So when you understand that things like that, they hide from us. Our people just found out about Juneteenth and what it represents, right? And now we wave these flags, and you have white and Asian people and even black people like, what does it mean? What does it mean? Well, again, you have a country that teaches Christopher Columbus found America, which we found out was a lie, but won't teach you about Black American history. A lot of these Republican states have just took out African American studies out of their curriculum. Why is that? Why do you want to hide the truth? Because it affects how you deal with the future. And so we must be loud and proud about what we are fighting for. And we ask that every listener of all race, creed, and color understand that if you love people, then you cannot be okay with what they're doing to our people and what they've done to Black Americans.
There's a lot of work to be done. As for legalized marijuana, so how has Black participation in the legalized marijuana industry changed because of X-Times for Community and social changes work?
Yeah, well, before I just didn't want to shortchange Ralph on my last answer. Him being a influential member in the community was essential to the peace agreement, because as we say, you have to take, if you get bit by a snake, right, they take the same venom to heal you. And so we're telling the people that we are the venom that can heal the community. And so he is example of being the venom that can heal from the snake biting community. And as far as the marijuana industry, we are changing it daily. So far, it hasn't come yet. So far, there's not one Black owner of a dispensary in Illinois. If you go into the legislation and read it, and even go back and listen to the mayor explanation of what we will be doing with the money, the extra 30% tax for y'all that are going and paying it. That's why we scream, support your local weed man, because you have to understand that you go and you pay this 30% tax, right? And the reason they were agreed to the 30% tax is because they promised that it will go directly into the neighborhoods that needed it most. They promised that it will go directly into the neighborhoods that were affected by the war on drugs. Yet we have not seen a dime of it. And
how long has the money been there and not being given to the community?
I think 2 or 3 years now. 2 or 3 years now, it's been completely legal or whatever since the dispensary started popping up. And again, look at the dispensary on Rogers, right? And then look at the Park Potawatomi right across the street. It's like, what the hell is happening? And so the same thing we said to Willie White. It's like, and to the alder person there, like, we really have to engage these dispensaries in the conversation that is necessary, or we're going to shut them down. or you will see us do a 7-day standout hunger strike in front of Cure Leaf and Zen and the other one, Cure Leaf and Zen. I can't think of it right now, but you will see us staging protest in front of their establishments because when we go see them, they say they gave the money up already. So, okay, if you gave the money up, who'd you give it to, right? Most will say they gave it to their our closest elected officials. So then we go to the elected officials and say, where's the money? And so they can't play ping pong back and forth. And so we're shining a light and opening up the door and saying, all right, enough is enough. You promised 30%. And meanwhile, you still have black and brown people locked up right now in this country, all over the world for marijuana charges, but yet you're selling it on our blocks. How is it that I can go in the store and buy it, but I can get pulled over for it, right? Or when you pull me over, you say that my car smelled like weed, and so they gave you probable cause to do everything else that you did to me in that stop, right? Malcolm X said this quote long ago, and we're kind of dealing with the same situation, right? He said, America is the type of country that sells you liquor and then locks you up for drinking it. So imagine when he said that, how profound it was, right? When they started locking up people for walking home, drinking a beer, walking home, having a drink after a hard day's work, right? Whatever this country can do to keep us down, they have proved they will continue to do it. We're just lucky that we're in an era now that we have people like yourself willing to fight for us. We have people of all races and colors willing to fight for our rights. And so that's the only reason America is willing to change right now. Again, Joe Biden, I'm not a fan of him prior, but I will say since he has taken office, I am proud to say he has done more for Black Americans than I think Obama did. His 8 years, right? With just the acknowledgement, with just admitting that this country has a issue is done a lot. And so, he was the person voting for mass incarceration. He's the person on record of saying that Black people are animals and things like that, right? And if we don't lock them up, we'll have a country of monkeys and animals or something along those texts, right? And so now to see that everybody has potential to change, right? Everybody can change their mind. And so to see him stand in front of his own mistakes and currently now acknowledge the things that he done wrong is inspiring. And so it kind of gives us more ammunition to have these kind of discussions, right? And so again, back to the marijuana industry, we're demanding that they rewrite the laws, do an entire overview of what they promised and what has been allocated. Because so far, none of it has reached the boots on the ground. None of it has reached the billions and billions of dollars that this industry has made. None of it has reached my community, the people I see every day, the people who I fight for every day. Not a dime of it has reached there. And so again, look at Potawatomi Park, look at Willie White Park, right? And then compare it to Horner Park, compare it to Wells Park, right? And you'll see that where there's Black people, there is also a sense of not caring. And that's a tragedy that we will not stand for anymore.
When you track the money, when you asked when they were bouncing the ball around, where was the last place that you found the ball? Where did they say the money was in the end?
Well, it depends on the neighborhood, because we're just not ECCSC in its role is not just primarily North. We're ECCSC North Coalition, right? However, when we tackle the holistic issues, we move as a team. And so in different neighborhoods, we have different circumstances. In different neighborhoods, we found that the alderperson was the thief. And then in different neighborhoods, we found out that the alderperson was just uneducated or negligent in getting the money allocated appropriately. And the truth be told, it just starts at the top. It starts with our mayor. It starts with our elected officials, right? It starts with our governor, who is allowing for these licenses to be approved, right? The perfect score was the thing that they used to lock out Black Americans, right? Where they said that no Black people passed this test. It's hard to believe. So we look at the Governor Pritzker in the face and say, you have to do more. You're doing some, but you must do more to make this entity fair. seeing as though I'm an ex-con, right? As I just said, I failed to see my daughter being born because of a marijuana charge, right? They locked me up for weed, and I failed to see my daughter born. So, they will say, okay, you can go get it expunged now, right? Or we'll seal it. But no one's dealing with the effect that it had on my children. The missed days, the missed birthdays, the missed monumental holidays, right? The money orders, the commissary, the phones, all the visitation. No one talks about the trauma that this country has dealt with and put on Black and brown Americans, right? And so, yeah, man, going back to what reparations and what the future looks like, it just looks like social and economic equality. And we're not so naive that we think this country will let us be equal, right? But damn it, you can give us a little bit more, right? You can give us a little bit more than what you're giving us. And so level the playing field some. Like I said, there's 32 prisons, but not one free community center anywhere. Come on, man. Right? They've put metal detectors and remember when we were young, when you got in trouble, you went to the dean's office, the principal's office. Now you got to go to jail. Now you got to go see the police that's in the elementary school, right? It's a pipeline from elementary schools to prisons that we must break up as well. So, Trudy, we have a long way to go, and there's so many issues, but it takes platforms like this, and I appreciate you allowing me to have this platform to express and to educate the viewers who I think that they don't really understand the plight that we're dealing with. When I look at the Rogers Park News and I look at these different social media entities and look at the comments, it kind of upsets my stomach. But at the same time, I know that most of you all are not educated. And so that's why I stand before you as somebody who can explain it, hopefully eloquently enough so that everybody will understand and then decide what side of history you want to be on. Because if you look at our plight and you still come up with excuses, one could just really identify you as a racist or someone who doesn't care about all people, right? So.
Okay. Yeah. Let's just clarify the money trail a little bit. So 30% of the taxes from the legalized marijuana was supposed to go to the Black communities, right?
Yes. Black and brown, the communities,
Black and brown.
The language says the community that was affected by the war on drugs, the community which is most affected by violence. That is where the 30% tax is supposed to go.
And if the tax is supposed to go to those communities, what is the tax supposed to do in those communities?
Well, build wealth. When you go to these communities that are suffering from violence, right? And you go, hi, how about this? Look at the Evanston side of Howard and look at the Black side of Howard Street, right? Look at Uptown before they disenfranchised and pushed us out of it, right? Look at Inglewood, look at Garfield Park, look at all the neighborhoods that are suffering from it, right? And then you'll see that if you put some money in it, then you put jobs in it, right? Because if you put businesses in your community, it gives the people the sense of belonging, right? If I go outside and all I see is broken bottles and abandoned buildings, right, and poverty, then what do I dream for? But if I go outside and I see new flourishing businesses and state-of-the-art things being built and my people winning, then I have a better chance of being motivated to win, right? And so it was supposed to go to make sure that the parks don't look like they look at Potawatomi or Willie White. It was supposed to go to resources so that Black entrepreneurs would have an opportunity to be business owners, so that Black entrepreneurs would have an opportunity to hire their own people, right? You look in these community stores. Let me give you something else. You go to like suburban areas, right? Like Schaumburg, where there's a lot of Black people. They don't have this sense of violence, right? It's because those places, those children have a sense of dreaming, right? And so they work at the stores like Walmart. Black people in the suburbs are working, right? But if you go in the city, the Arab stores and the Asian stores, right? You go in there and you see they're hiring their people, which is okay. That's why we need more resources so we can hire our children, so that we could have a place of sense of belonging for our children, right? And so that is where the money was supposed to go. It was supposed to go to all of the things: restorative justice, criminal justice reform, diversity, inclusion training, all of these things that our community suffers from. It starts and ends with equity, because we give us equity, everything else can come behind that, right? With equity, we can hire those who have made it to train the ones who have not made it, right? We can ensure that our schools look and have the same resources as Naperville schools have, or any suburban schools have. So that is where the money was supposed to go. And that is where we're demanding that it will go.
Of course. Do you have any idea how much money there was? That 30%?
I do not. I just know that this industry has made over $30 billion since its existence, right? And so that's globally, right? And again, we have a global pandemic in Black America. And so everywhere they're making the money, every city that has a legalized dispensary in it, right? All of the neighborhoods surrounding it that are being affected by poverty, by pain, by criminality need it, and it should change quickly. It takes resources. It takes resources.
Do you have any legal help helping you, or accountants? Because actually with Freedom of Information, you could find out exactly how much money the legalized marijuana industry made in our area, and then how much was supposed to go into taxes, and then that of that 30%, where that 30% was allocated to. You already found that some of it was misallocated by the alderperson in ways that might be stolen or what have you. So do you have any programs in your organization to chase the money down?
Yes, we do. I just at the ready, I don't have the numbers, but okay. We're very astute in the numbers, because that's where it's at, right? If you follow the numbers, then you follow the source, right? And so we do know exactly how much. I just didn't have it ready, available, but yes, ma'am, we do have that information. And so that is why we confidently protest and display our displeasure, because we know the facts. And when you know the facts, I mean, I think it's public knowledge, the R3 program, right, in the grant money, just January, the R3 program, and that money that was allocated all over the city of Chicago, ask yourself how much of it made it to their boots on ground, right? And so a lot of these organizations, what they do is they pay themselves high salaries, right, from the top to the bottom, but none of it, by the time you pay all the executives and all of the directors, right, then you don't have money to reach the fruit. Sorry, we like to say they like to deal with the fruit and not the root, right? And so we're dealing with the root, because we are the fruit that everybody else is forgetting about. And so we have to, as people who are educated, who understand, deal with the root of the issue. And so, and then just to clarify, here on the north side, we do have the support of those aldermen that I mentioned, Haddon, Vasquez, and Martin.
So how much has Haddon, Vasquez, and Martin allocated of that money
to
the community?
Zero. But they are in the discussions to change it. We realize that it's systematic, right? Just like I can't blame this one-off officer for being racist, even if he's Black, towards Black people, because he's been trained in a systematic to be that way. And so all we can ask from now is from our elected officials is just listen, right? Listen, and then wholeheartedly engage in change, right? We understand that you were taught and brought into this system thinking one thing, like the small things with the Correct the Courts initiative and Willie White, right? It's something small, but it's so major to our community. And so, I will give kudos to her, because she listened to us and she understood the plight, and she stepped in, and because the park Public Advisory Council and the people who work there in the park, they didn't want to do it. They were just, they said racist things like basketball begets violence, or basketball breeds violence, right? And we know that's a racist comment. And so, Ms. Haddon in this small sample, stepped in and utilized her power in the appropriate way. And we're in discussions with those people, and it may change, because so far right now we have words and we have promises. So ask me that again in 6 months to a year, what was the money and how they have affected the community, and I'll tell you then they were either full of BS, or I'll have a laundry list of things that they assisted with. So.
Do you know that, so that money that was supposed to be allocated to the communities, so that money didn't even reach Maria Haddon or the other two aldermen that you mentioned?
So we're investigating it now, Trudy. I don't have a clear answer right now. I would tell you we're in discussions with both dispensaries, the one on Clark and the one on Rogers currently, and we're working on it. We're working on getting, and they know that if they are guilty, we will expose it. And so on this day, I'm saying that they are on the right side of it with the knowledge that I have thus far. And so it's an ongoing investigation, and we expect that we'll enhance the truth soon, very soon.
Uncover the truth, yes.
Uncover the truth, yes, ma'am.
So I guess so it's supposed to be 30% of the taxes that they pay in should go to the community. So who again is collecting the taxes?
Good question. And so that's why ECCSC, along with LaShawn Ford, State Representative LaShawn Ford, we're asking for an overview of the allocation, right? And who is doing exactly what you said? Who is the officer, or who is the entity in charge of first identifying who made the money, and then saying where it go, and then furthermore making sure that it gets to the people who need it most. That is what we fight for daily. And so far, we haven't been given the answers that we need. That is why we still go to these dispensaries and shut them down. Because one thing we know, if we shut them down and we stop their money, they will either tell on their allies, right? They'll blow the whistle and say, hey, this person promised that if I gave them this much, that I don't have to do this, right? Or they'll just pay it. And so that's why we're starting with the root. We know that if we shut down the dispensaries and stop them from getting their money, that they will enhance the truth, as you just said. And so that's what we're working on currently, while dealing with the state reps and them to deal with the legislation part of it, the reason why there's no Black owners of dispensaries thus far. While they're dealing with that, we're dealing with the boots on the ground strategy, as well as dealing with the owners of these dispensaries.
Do you know how many, were there a lot of African Americans who applied to have these, to open these dispensaries, and then how many were rejected? Any idea at all?
So I don't have the idea of the number, but I can tell you they all were rejected. We just recently did a press conference talking about this. If you go on the page, you'll see State Rep LaShawn Ford in front of it. I just know that there is none. For everyone that applied, everyone got rejected due to the perfect score. So I don't know if it was 10 or 100. I just know currently we have none.
And do you know if that's systemic across the nation? Any idea?
Say that again.
Is it system-wide? Is it like this across the nation, or in this area? Is there anywhere in the nation where African Americans do own marijuana dispensaries?
Yeah, but it's far to none though. I mean, you take Colorado. There's a woman, I think her name is Wanda. She's the first Black female owner of dispensaries, right? So yeah, there's an issue all across the country, because you have people who are ex-cons. They can't, the system still won't allow us to apply. When you took our whole idea, locked us up for it, and then switched it up. And so just like in everything, right? Nothing is 100%, right? Like the affluent and the people who made it will say, you just have to try harder. There's so many resources, you can do it, right? And I'm saying that, what about the 40% of people who got caught in the trap, who can't make it, right? We got to think about those. And so it's not nearly enough. How about
Do
that?
you know if there's any legislation in the pipeline that that allows for persons that have been convicted of marijuana offenses to be able to own marijuana dispensaries?
I do not. I don't think there's any. I think we're working on it. I think that
Mhm.
Senator Mike Simmons will be in front of it as well, as he has been a lot of the racist laws that this government puts forth. But if you want another thing, ex-cons and all the ex-cons out there, whether you white, black, Hispanic, or whatever, we are the only group of people that this country can legally discriminate against, right? All the politicians and all of the Republican states and even the Democratic states, they all say that we must stand by the Constitution. We must stand on the Constitution of America, right? We cannot change the Constitution. Yet Black people realize that they change the Constitution whenever they get ready when it comes to Black people. You have the right to bear arms unless you have a felony that this government gave you, right? Like all of these things that they amend when it comes to Black people regarding the government and the Constitution. And lastly, people, I want to say that I'm not talking bad about this flag. I'm saying that you must realize that we helped build this country. We put in just as much blood, sweat, and tears, if not more, maybe more, because we were the workers, right? We were the slaves. So we built the railroad systems, we built the infrastructures, right? And so when you realize that, I'm not talking bad about the flag, I'm talking bad about what the flag did to us, right? And so, yeah, I sorry, I get passionate sometimes, but yeah, people. What was the question again, Trudy? I lost my train of thought. You asked me
Oh,
specifically about uh
if there's any legislation in place to allow for ex-offenders
it's
concerning
not. It's
marijuana.
not, but we're
Mhm,
working on it. It's not.
mhm.
And it should be, as I said, that's what got me going to the Constitution exactly.
Right.
The
Mhm,
legislation part. And it's not.
mhm.
Black people and people who've been locked up, as I said in the beginning, are the only group of people that this country is legally uh, 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 allowed to discriminate against, right? If you're any other type of person, they say you can't, use your past against you, right? Forgive, forgive, forgive. We had a president and in Trump that they asked us to forgive all his transgressions, right? When the police do stupid stuff, they ask us to forgive all of those transgressions. America is asking Black people to forgive all of their transgressions. Forget slavery, forget civil rights, forget all the moments. And so we're saying, as ex-cons, when do we get some forgiveness? When do we get an opportunity to turn the other cheek and show that we have been corrected as well? When you understand that all we did was fall for the same systematic trick that was designed anyway. So there is none yet, but we're hoping that there will be some soon.
Mhm. Is X-Guys for Community and Social Change able to start mentorship with incarcerated inmates?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we are them. I still got 10, 15 people calling me from prisons currently. And so we live our life as mentors, Trudy. Everybody who sees me win and understands who I used to be and see me doing what I'm doing now, I'm mentoring them. Every time they call me, collect from Stateville and Menard and Pontiac, and I give them the good news that we're doing, that is mentorship. When they come home and we have jobs for them, and when they come home and we have programming for them, right? Another thing I've been preaching, and we're working on getting the funding for this, is that I believe that people who are victims of mass incarceration, people who have been, you know, caught up in the system, they need sponsors as well, like similar to AA or NA. Everybody has advocates for them after they get out of whatever circumstance they were in, right? And well, I'm saying there needs to be some kind of assistance for returning citizens as well. So when you're hungry and you feel like going back and going into the same mindset that got you locked up, you can call me and say, hey man, I'm having these crazy thoughts, right? Like I'm thinking about having a drink, or I'm thinking about having a smoke, or I'm thinking about beating my wife, right? You have all of these things that you have sponsors, but no one gives returning citizens or those people who are locked up those same kind of resources upon release. Why? Because corrections in this country is equitable, right? They gain capital off our plight. So that is why the government hasn't put more effort into preventative measurements than they do responses, right? If they spent nearly as much money as preventing the problem as they do as responding to the problem, we wouldn't have as many problems as we currently have.
At what points of an offender's journey in the justice system does X-Cons for Community and Social Change initiate contact and work with the offender?
I mean, are you speaking only people who are offended or people who are locked up?
Yes, yes,
Well,
for now.
from the moment they make contact, or if the moment one of the family members make contact, from
Oh,
the moment we understand this Tyrone built this organization for ex-cons, right, and for people who are locked up, because we identify that most people are locked up because they systematically were defeated. They failed to beat the system that was designed to get them there. And so now we are in place trying to develop a whole nother system. And so we make contact with them the moment, every day, all day is, I mean, with through every resource that we can, through the correctional officers, through family members, and through our own outreach, we engage in those offenders.
So you're director of outreach. At first, I thought it was outreach for a community, but it's actually more outreach to offenders that the organization could help, right?
It's both. It's both. He gave me that title more for these kind of engagements. I speak well for the organization, but we also have strictly director of community outreach and outreach coordinators. But in this life, every moment is outreach, right? Every time we show up and I speak and I open my mouth to the youth, that's outreach and that's engagement. So yeah, it's both completely.
So how does ECCSC work with offenders' families, and how do you how do people hear of the organization in the first place? What kind of outreach do you do?
Well, the same as everybody else, right? Currently, all the social medias, right? We definitely use all our social media platforms. That is probably our number one marketing resource. Well, I know number two, because number one is getting involved, getting boots on the ground. You people from Rogers Park and Uptown, y'all see the blue communities partnering for peace. Y'all see us out in the streets. You have more recently saw these trucks running around and driving around. So that's our job, to engage the community. And so we take our job seriously, because I know that every child I can get to think this way and to understand that the person across the street and that invisible gang barrier is not his enemy, is not his opposition. And that the truth is the opposition and enemy is the government that is writing these laws to prevent you from being successful. Every child that I say that to and hears me is a potential candidate for our organization. You understand what I'm saying? And so the families, right now, as I'm reaching out to the families, if you have a family member locked up or on his way home, please reach out. You can reach out in all social media platforms through the inbox, or you can go to my personal number is 312-838-2979. And I live my life publicly and proudly as a community servant. We are community servants. And so from little things as, I don't know, your son, your teenage boy is out of control, call us. Because if you call the police, he might end up dead. And that's just a fact. We saw it play out over and over and over the last few years. So we're saying call us. And that is how we have mothers that reach out to us all the time, Trudy, about their children, men and women. And so, yeah, that is how we gain our participants.
What is the Black Gaming League, and how does the league tie in with X-Cons for Community and Social Change?
All right, well, I appreciate you asking that. As you guys can see behind me, that is our logo. And in short, Black Gaming League is my entrepreneurial adventure, right? I am co-founder and vice president. BGL is synonymous with BET. When BET was created in 1980, it was created because of the same disparities that we suffer from in the gaming industry. Pay attention, people of color. If you have a child at home right now that is playing the game, right? Our parents are still teaching them, get off the game, go read a book or whatever. Did you know that this industry was making $180 billion currently, of which Black people are represented less than 1% in earnings and employment? Gaming is now considered a profession. However, Black people, similar to every other plight in this country, are represented less than 1% of earnings and employment. So this league was designed to attract, showcase, promote, and unite Black gamers. However, all gamers are welcome. That is why I use BET as a reference, is because I think most people will understand why they did it, what they did it for, and what was the outcome of that entity being built. And so we stand before you as Black Gaming League with, we have sponsorships with CPS, right? Where we would take our curriculum into every school around the area and teach this profession. Because in order for you to be a profession, did you know that all the HBCUs and the colleges are currently offering scholarships in gaming? But none of them can tell you how to get from elementary school to high school. The Illinois High School Association has yet to get involved, but they're coming. They recently realized they just approved for a $30 billion esports arena to be built in Bronzeville, right? And that is to have an arena for people to compete. And so Black Gaming League is designed for that reason. And how it ties into ECCSC is because I am the co-founder and vice president. And the president of Black Gaming League and the founder is my brother, who is also a member of ECCSC. And so we stand before you as proof evident that with given a chance and some resources, you might develop the next greatest thing. Because what you see behind me is a $1 billion business. It is a $1 billion business. We are currently in talks with Ariel Capital of partnerships, and every other investor who is watching, whether it be angel or capital. We have room for you to have a discussion, because we know that we are the number one consumers in this industry, but we ain't making no money. So that's how it ties in. I'm an ex-con, and I fight for community and social change every day of my life. But I'm also proud owner and co-founder and president of Black Gaming League.
For the non-gamers among us, what does BET represent?
Oh, BET is Black Entertainment Television. It has nothing to do with gaming. BET is a channel on TV that a guy by the name of Bob Johnson started in 1980 with 500,000, who is currently a Black billionaire. And he's made millions and millions of, he made hundreds of other millionaires, right? Maybe a couple of other billionaires. And so BET was Black Entertainment Television, was started in 1980. And yesterday was the BET Awards. And the reason they made these shows is because the Grammys and the Oscars, as we know, have always been historically racist. And so they developed a place to celebrate, our talent. And that is what Black Gaming League is a place where you can develop your children's talent. And he can go from being just a gamer in the bedroom to being a professional. $180 billion, Trudy. Think about that. This industry is making more money than music and movies combined currently. So that is what we developed this entity for.
Does this involve developing games as well, or is it just gamers?
No, that's the trick. They that's the trick. Our children and our peers think that their money is only in gaming, or think that the hobby is only gaming, the actual, playing the game, right? However, we developed a curriculum that will teach them all the other aspects. Like, we will actually come to these schools and do job fairs just involving gaming, right? From digital design, audio and visual engineering, videography, publishing, coding, everything STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, everything that these schools are teaching in regards to STEAM, gaming encompasses it all. And there is a career available for your children in this industry, no matter if they can draw well, even if they can speak well, or if they're just entertaining and charismatic, they can stream and become millionaires. They don't even have to be that good at the gaming. But this entity, as I said, currently makes more money than music and movies combined, Trudy.
Mm. Well, now we'll get to our community assessment. So let's do a wizard community assessment with you. WZRD Chicago, being a nonprofit radio station, must be responsible to the community we serve. WZRD is mandated to file quarterly issues with the FCC on non-entertainment, which is community-focused programming. So we would like to assess the community for these quarterly issue topics with 3 questions. First, what is most important to you?
Most important to me is that we end gang violence and that black on black murder in this city be stopped. And it could be stopped. We know it can be stopped. So what's most important is that the politicians and the elected officials get in front of black on black crime like a pandemic. And do you see how fast they came over with the vaccination? So in Black America, we're asking, where's our vaccination? Where's our fix? So that's what's most important, is that we stop killing each other. And slashly, what's most important is that we have the resources to do so.
What is the long-term problem that we must address?
Equity. Equity. The long-term issue and the issue of this country has always been black people and black equity. There's no reason that black households make significantly much more than every other household. There's no reason that our communities look significantly worse than every other community. I mean, you know, you look at little things like Chinatown, right? There's a Chinatown in every city across America, right, where they thrive. Those people in that community love each other and they thrive together, right? And so we're saying to Black America that it is time we start back building our Black Wall Street. Do people know about Black Wall Street? Do people know what happened in Tulsa, where all the things that they say, do it yourself, do it yourself. If you only get your own, well, we had it before, and this country burned it down, and they bombed us. The only evidence you have of this country bombing domestic people is black people. They bombed us because we gained equity, and they killed thousands of black families, dentists, lawyers, doctors, where we built our own equity, people. So I say to the athletes and to the superstars and to those who have the money, when will you start working on Black Wall Street again? Because it's very, very necessary. And so long term, yeah, Black Wall Street. When I get this first $1 billion from Black Gaming League, I'll be looking to attract more Black wealth, Black excellence, because if we don't save us and we don't tell our story, Trudy, nobody will.
What problem must be resolved now?
Violence. Violence. Understand this, people. Black people do not own no boats, trains, submarines. We don't own Smith & Wesson. We don't own none of these entities that make mass weapons, right? But yet they somehow end up in our babies' hands, right? And so that is the issue. The problem right now is violence. You do not have to accept violence in your neighborhood. Because if they allocated the funds, if they allocated the resources properly, we wouldn't have it. Every time you drive down Michigan Avenue, people understand that you might drive by $2 million in salaries and resources from the police department. And you pull over and you ask them, hey, what are y'all doing down here? They got horses down there. They got all those things on Michigan Ave, right? And they'll tell you they don't even know what they're down there for. They're down there to protect infrastructure. But meanwhile, we have mass shootings happening all over the city. So take those officers. How easy is it to put an officer in every high crime area and have them sit there? It's not that hard, Trudy. But this government doesn't want to do it. And so that is the immediate short-term goal, is to get our babies out of the mindset of killing one another. Because America really going to have a problem on their hands when more people become educated like me, Ralph Edwards, Tyrone Muhammad, and my other colleagues. The more of us that stand like this and talk like this, the more things that will change quickly. And so that is my answer, Trudy.
Well, thank you so much. This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM, and we had with us Gregory Sherman Jr., Director of Community Outreach and Engagement for ex-cons for Community and Social Change. And Gregory is also Vice President and co-founder of Black Gaming League. Thank you so much for, huh?
No, I was just saying, yes, I was being your hype man at that moment, sorry.
Yes, thank you so much, Gregory, for all your insight and all the information as we reflect on community and social change on our show today. Thank you again, Gregory.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation. And like I say, anybody who has a voice, silence is agreement. Silence is agreement, and complacency is consent. So thank you, Trudy, for all that you guys do. And let's work together to make a better future for our children and our children's children. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you too, Gregory. Thank you so much.
All right. Peace, God. Shout out you guys, man. Black Gaming League. Tune in. BlackGamingLeague.com, ECCSC.org. Hope to see you all soon. Bye-bye.
And more information on ECCSC, how would our listeners find more information about you?
Oh, it's a website. It's ECCSC.org. We have a full website there where you can also donate, because some of these protests, we do have legal fees because they still lock us up for protesting our right to protest. So, if you are willing to donate, you can do so at ECCSC.org. And as you see these stickers pop up in these tournaments, please go to BlackGamingLeague.com if you have a child or someone in your house who wants to engage in the league as well. So those are the two platforms, and all social medias for both. We have all social media outlets for both entities.
Okay, and maybe some listener might have missed your telephone number as well. If they wanted to contact you, please repeat your phone number.
Oh yeah, 312-838-2979. That is my personal phone number. If you have any questions about any of the things that we spoke about today, feel free to call me anytime, any day. I'm always up. So thank you, Trudy.
Okay. Thank you so much, Gregory. Have a great day. Thank you.
You do the same. Talk to you guys soon, I hope. Bye-bye.